I hope you've had a chance to listen to part one of this interview on Biz Bites. Stay tuned now for part two. Welcome to Biz Bites, brought to you by Com Together, helping businesses like yours build their brand through telling amazing stories to engage and grow audiences on multiple platforms.
As this before, went through all the reforms we went through, and now renewables is a huge change that's coming through. I think the recent numbers in Australia, there's $40 billion worth of transmission capex required over the next little while. Then all the distribution sides, there's discussion around gas, what needs to be done there. Renewable energy zones are being built now. So when you think about how to replace 1-2 gigawatt size coal-fired power stations with, up until recently, 100, 20, 50, 70, 200, 300 megawatt, which is it's a scale lower of wind and solar, and then it's intermittent and the coal runs, etc. All that stuff is interesting. Where they're located is different to where a coal-fired power station would be located, because you need the wind to blow. So as it changes, which is rapidly doing over time, and then batteries now. So the batteries, pumped hydro storage, snowy hydro, there's so much money required to be built. And the reliability and what's happening when you're shutting down coal-fired power stations, as you rightly know now, and all your listeners will know, electricity prices are going up 20%, 30% on 1 July. And a lot of that is to do with the changing nature of where energy is coming from.
Yeah, it's and I think what's really interesting about that, there's two aspects to it. Is one, that obviously there is the impact in terms of energy itself and what we're all having to think about. And I know in planning to build out our house that we're thinking about the size of the solar panels and things that we can have on here to cope with that, because obviously energy prices are going up all the time, and it takes up a huge amount of money. But you can't blame that for happening given the changing circumstances that are there. But I think equally, what I find really fascinating is the need for a sector like that to be so forward thinking, because they don't want to wake up one morning and suddenly everyone's got batteries and they haven't thought about it at all, because that's what's going to happen, right? That we'll have less reliance on electricity from the grid as we're able to have batteries that are, I guess, more affordable and work better at a local level. And it's not, I didn't really want to discuss the batteries and all that technology with you, but more the idea of forward planning. I mean, how much time do you have to spend with businesses in your role in terms of saying, well, are we thinking about what's happening next? What are the changes that we have to understand that are coming, and the implications that they will have for the business, so you're a step in front?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's right. Getting back to what we're doing here. So if you think about the way that I approach businesses, given the history and the nature of the things I get involved in, it might be for a takeover. It might be for growing strategically. It might be that you just want to get a financial model that does things what they need so they can see the business. A lot of businesses, surprisingly, this means P&L balance sheet, but they don't have very good cash flow and they can't see what's going on. Some businesses have, I won't go into the detail, but a client had a chief operating officer, a badge of honor on their chest says, I rank in the top 10% of my industry in Australia, have done for the last 5 or 10 years. I'm a champion. And they were top, fantastic. But they spent a lot of money doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And guess what? Financially, they were in a bad way. And so the discussions around the board, around the planning, what needs to be done, where's the money come from, that's great to be top 10, but are you gold plating everything, et cetera, et cetera. So those conversations happen quite a lot. As said before, about businesses trying to grow either within their state, geographically or vertically, so horizontally or vertically, that's all planning. So a lot of the stuff I get involved with then is building financial models that enable them to assess that. Yeah. So when you think about best practice financial models, it's all structurally set up, but it's a lot of stuff I get build is scenario managers, sensitivity structures, dashboards, so that they can play with the various scenarios they want to look at. You know, a mining client had 50 scenarios they looked at, and about 300 or 400 items that might change or could change depending on how they dug the iron ore out of the ground. Hematite, magnetite, they could do dredging, they could send it on road or rail to a port, they could store it here, there, sheds, they could ship it, they could put it through, they could even wet it down and put it through a pipeline. So all that was just, so many things could vary, but you've got to assess all that. That's that forward planning stuff. And then what's the future price look like for coal or iron ore when you're selling it, and how do you do that? Because a lot of this stuff, when you do feasibility studies, as you probably appreciate, they're big dollars, they're billions of dollars to invest. And what's going to happen with the coal price or the iron ore price or the gas price over time? Look what's happening with LNG. Look what's happened with iron ore price and coal price over the time. It's tanked and it's risen and it's come down. So the timing around what you do or when you do it is really important. And strategically, I worked for 7 years I was with Energex, and we're trying to bring natural gas down from PNG down the coast all the way down to the Queensland coast. And you think about the deals with the Exxon Mobils, the oil searchers, the et cetera, and the pipeliners to try and work out how to get all that built and done and signed off and then sell it and get off-takes agreements in place with the various big power stations or Comelcos, the likes of Comelco, QAL in Gladstone or other ones around Mount Isa, Townsville. Imagine trying to do all that, and it had to be packaged so that the financially it stacked up end to end all at one time. And we just could not get it to work at the one time when you could get the deal done. Now, we could have sold that pipeline, I think, about 3 or 4 times over the years, but never all packaged up at the right time. So that's a really big example. And then you get smaller examples where I want to buy a similar business in Victoria. I'm in Queensland. I want to buy a similar business in Victoria, and that could be a 100% jump in scale of the business. And that is a big decision to make. So strategically, do I take on and grow out of my known patch and take on a business, take on clients and that sort of stuff? You know, one of the other businesses I was involved in was steel galvanizing, steel bashing, manufacturing, fabrication. And you think steel galvanizing, hot dip galvanizing, steel plate, all the associated environmental risks around that is huge. And what could seep into waterways, et cetera, and how the businesses you're looking at buying may have done things maybe not to best practice, and the legalities behind all that, and the environmental risk and the risk to the business about whether you buy the asset or the business or the certain things. So, that's fascinating how you think through all that and help people understand all those issues they need to assess about trying to grow the business and what that may look like and where's the most value add or bang for the buck.
Yeah, I think that level of strategic thinking is massively underestimated by a lot of businesses, and particularly in a world where changes are moving at such a rapid rate. I mean, we spoke about COVID obviously having a massive impact globally, but technology moving and where we're, things that we're doing, all of these things that you have to step out in front of, because if you don't anticipate them in your modeling, then you are falling behind straight away, and it's not like you can hang on for a little while. It just doesn't happen. I've seen the advent of AI is a good example. There are businesses that are falling apart because, in theory, AI is replacing them, without going into the whole AI debate. But I think there's a lot of things that we all need to be on top of and understand where we're going, and not enough time is generally spent strategically looking at that as a business.
Yeah. Well, you think of pre-COVID, right? So if you think of Sydney Airport, for example, or airports generally, but Sydney Airport, no one sort of saw COVID coming, and no one saw the implication that would have on the value of the airport and the cash flows associated with that. So how does that impact, and what do you do? How do you respond to that? Look at the airlines themselves. What Qantas went through, and Virgin went into receivership. and come out the other side. So there's a huge impact on that, and that's about planning and looking forward. And do you plan for the doomsday events? How do you respond to those things? AI, as you say, AI is coming into my world. Financial modeling, etc. There's so much going on with ChatGPT and financial models, and can you do things through AI, etc. But Anthony, because my involvement's been through, big infrastructure, but resources and mining, manufacturing, even IT startups, technology businesses, construction engineering, dealing with regulatory authorities, super funds, etc., and the ATO. There's a lot of issues that businesses need to think through. Now, they all don't apply to all businesses, clearly, but they all have a similar concept about, have you got the tools to enable you to reasonably and responsibly assess future strategies and future opportunities and future threats? And so that's where I spend my time. If you don't mind, I'll give you a very quick analogy that I tell people. I help them win a Formula One race. And you think of this: if you have an old EJ Holden and put that on the Formula One grid, you're not going to win the race, right? So you need a best practice or the best built car. So that's where I spend my time, building the models that are equivalent to the best Formula One car. Yep. So now you've got a car you can actually compete with. But then if you don't have all the CFO and background strategies and plannings and that stuff in place, you can't win the race. So that's, to me, the pit crew, the strategy, what lap do you bring people on? Do you have the changing of the tyres down to 2.2 seconds, the refueling strategy right? All that stuff. If you don't do that right, you cannot win the race. And so many people lost the race accordingly. And then lastly, if you don't have the sexy front end, I call it, if you don't have the best driver, and that could be the best CEO or the best head of M&A expert, or someone driving the business, or board chair, someone who actually knows how to drive the business forward. Again, what's the point of putting me behind a car that goes 300 kilometers an hour into the first corner? I'll miss the braking mark, crash it, kill myself, and smash the car, and I won't win the race. So to me, it's all connected. Yeah. So I help people try and understand that. How do you win the race? By understanding all those things and how they're all interconnected.
I love that analogy, and particularly someone who happens to be a Formula One fan. So I think you kind of described Ferrari over the last few years, that they've had some of those bits, but they haven't had all of them to put it on, to get it into position. It does make you admire those teams. One of the more fascinating business talks that I sat through a couple of years back was Mark Webber, describing pretty similar that sort of analogy that you talk about. And, from a driver's point of view, saying he was just one person in the team. And whilst at the end of a race, you often see the driver saying, thank you to the team. You can underestimate the real value. They certainly don't, because they're not driving that car to the past the checkered flag if it's not for all of those things functioning, and such little details that can go wrong so quickly, that can impact a world championship, as we saw a couple of years ago. So I think that it's such a great analogy for business to follow as well, and so much there to unpack, David. And I feel as though we could talk for a lot longer, but we're pretty much out of time. But I just wanted to finish up and saying, based on that analogy, I'm gathering there are a lot of aha moments when people start working with you, that they realize this is why we got you on board. And I think that's the one question that I like to ask my guests is, if you could reveal that aha moment to more people so that they came and knocked on your door a little bit earlier, is there a particular moment where you see the light switch on for people that you've connected them and you're getting that Formula One car ready for the checkered flag?
It's a good question, Anthony. It happens differently for different people, as you could probably appreciate. A board chairman that I knew brought me in because I had a takeover offer, and all the owners, 5 owners, the owners went, "Whoa, fantastic, I'll take that." And the chairman said, "Hang on a sec, let's get this place independently valued," which we did. And we got them about 80% increase in value. The aha moment was when we built them a model that actually worked, and they could understand their value, and they could negotiate a better deal. All the owners went, "Oh, thank God we did that." Because they were happy, very happy with what they were offered. but they just got nearly 100% more. Another one recently, a CEO of a small business, pretty hands-on, built a lot of the models they deal with and the finance people collectively. And I showed them, they showed me through their models. And then I showed them what our models look like and can do. And the aha moment went, oh my God, I waste so much time doing what I do. It is ridiculous compared to what we can do with your models. So that's another one. And I guess some boards I've dealt with and CEOs dealing through the CFO a lot of the time. CFO, I basically try and make the CFO look good in the eyes of the CEO and therefore the board. And some of the times when we present their views, their plans, their strategies with the models we've built, and show them how it can be done and what it means and how they can then spend their time analysing the business and forecasting and planning. When they do that, the aha moment is, oh my God, if only we had known this before.
Well, let's hope, David, that a whole lot more people learn that after having heard this podcast. There's just so many great things that you've covered there, and I just love the amount of experience that you've had and you've been able to share with us. And I really appreciate your time. And we're going to include some contact information in the show notes if you'd like to connect with David and hear more about his business, because clearly he's making a huge difference to a lot of businesses. And thank you again for the conversation, and I hope we can continue it again in the very near future.
Thank you, Anthony. And I know you like to ask your folk if they want to provide something as a bit of an incentive for your listeners. So look, one of the things we do is test financial models clearly to make them understand where their best practice. So I'm happy to offer a high-level model review of any financial model that people want to do. Now, that won't include the testing of all the functionality, the computations, but things like inconsistency formula over time, hard coding formula, ref errors, all those things, and best practice guidance. I'm happy to do that for free. So offer that up for folk. If they're interested, they can reach out to me.
Fantastic. And as I said, we will definitely include links to all of that in the show notes for the program. David, thank you so much for being a great guest on BizBytes. BizBytes is brought to you by ComTogether for all your marketing needs so you can build your brand, engage audiences on multiple platforms. Go to comtogether.com.au, follow the links to book an appointment for a free consultation.